Thank you. Please be seated.
Judge, I would like to get the record before we begin.
We don't have a court reporter yet. We need to wait just a moment.
Okay.
Approach for a second. All right, we're back on the record. The record will show the presence of the defendant and all counsel. Mr. Nurmi.
Thank you, Your Honor. As it relates to the recent, no better word for it than stunt, of Mr. Martinez asking a lay witness who was not present on June 4th, 2008, when Mr. Alexander attacked Ms. Arias, whether or not her justification defense was valid. He showed a picture, Exhibit 205. There was certainly their reaction is understandable. There was an audible reaction from the victim's family. I understand they probably weren't expecting it, and like I said, the reaction is understandable. But we would ask that if any further occasion such as this, as I referred to as a stunt, happens again, that they be moved to the victim room, because we did and were able to see visible reaction on the part of some of the jurors to their reaction. And I would supplement that as the motion for the mistrial that I made at bench as well.
For the reasons stated at the bench, the motion for mistrial is denied. And ladies and gentlemen in the gallery, I'm going to ask you once again, please refrain from making any comments or laughing or responding in any way to the testimony or evidence. It could affect the outcome of the trial. Thank you for your cooperation. All right, we're going to bring in the jury. And the witness may take the stand. She's in. Ms. Daidoni, please come forward and take the stand. Please be seated. The record will show the presence of the jury, the defendant, and all counsel. Mr. Martinez, you may continue.
Ma'am, isn't it true that the incident involving the outburst of anger by Travis Alexander involved him throwing a telephone in response to damage caused to his vehicle?
Yes.
I don't have anything else.
Any other questions from the jury for this witness? You may step down. The defense may call their next witness.
The defense calls Desiree Freeman.
Right up here, please.
Can you spell your first and last name for me?
DESIREEFREEMAN.
Raise your right hand. You do solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. Just go right ahead.
You may proceed.
Thank you. Can you tell us your name, please?
Desiree Freeman.
And Ms. Freeman, are you in school right now?
I am.
Where do you go to school?
Brigham Young University.
So you're a college student?
Yes.
And are you a senior?
Yes, I am.
In fact, were you on a mission?
Yes, I just got back about 6 weeks ago.
Where did you go?
England.
And what does a mission mean?
You spend 18 months as a, not really an employee, but as a volunteer, talking to people about the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and the things that we believe.
Okay. And so that brings me to my next question. Are you a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints?
Yes.
Is that a Mormon?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Do you know who Daniel Freeman is?
Yes, he's my brother.
And so right now, I take it, since you're going to BYU, are you living in Utah?
Yes.
At a point in time, did you ever live in Gilbert?
Yes, I lived there from 2001 to 2008.
You know, I'm going to ask you to just speak up a little bit.
Okay.
I'm having a little trouble hearing you. Or you can move that, I think that mic might move a little bit. The
That
flat one.
microphone? Okay. That's exciting.
Thanks. All right, so I'm sorry, you said you lived in Gilbert when?
From January of 2001 to January 2008.
All right, and January of 2008, is that when you left for your mission?
No, that's when I moved to Utah to go to Brigham Young University.
When you started at BYU, okay. When you lived in Gilbert, did you belong to a church?
Yes.
And part of, well, were you raised as a Mormon?
Yes, I was.
Okay. And so, did you always go to church as being raised that way?
Yeah.
Did you know someone named Travis Alexander?
Yes, I did.
And how did you know him?
I knew him through my brother Daniel.
I'm sorry, what?
I knew him through my brother Daniel.
Okay. And did you know Jodi Arias?
Yes, I did.
How did you know Jodi?
Through Travis.
All right. And do you see Jodi here today?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And is your brother older than you? Is your brother older than you?
Yes, he is.
Okay. All right. And so you met Jodi and Travis through your brother?
Yes.
All right. And did you all go to the same church activities?
Yeah, we did.
Is that a yes?
Yes, it is.
All right. Were there times that you would hang out with Jodi and Travis?
Yeah.
And your brother also?
Yes.
So did you hang out with as the four of you together?
Yeah, we did.
And were there times when you would hang out, you would have, Jodi and Travis would be there, but there would be more than just you and your brother present also?
Yes.
And during what time period are we talking? When did this happen?
From the beginning of 2007 until I left in the beginning of 2008.
Okay, so for about a year?
About a year, yeah.
And the times that you would see or hang out, I guess, with your brother and Jodi and Travis, how often did that happen?
Where it was just the four of us happened a few times throughout that year.
Okay, and what about how often did it happen when you would be in a larger group?
That I would say probably about every few weeks or so.
Okay, and when you would hang out in a larger group, was that part of church activities?
Sometimes it was other activities.
Okay. Besides these times that you hung out together, did you also take a trip with where Jodi and Travis were there?
Yes.
Did you go to Havasu Play?
Yes, we did.
And where else did you go?
We also went to Sedona and the Grand Canyon.
Okay. When the four of you would hang out together, what kinds of things did you typically do?
Let's see. Mostly I would say it was just travel, like traveling or watching a movie or something.
Traveling or watching a movie?
Yeah,
Okay.
as far as I can recollect.
I know it was several years ago.
Yeah.
All right. Did you have a chance to see or observe Travis and Jodi together when it was just the four of you, either on trips or just hanging out watching movies?
Yes.
And how did Travis treat Jodi when it was just the four of you?
Very well.
And what do you mean by very well? What did he do?
They just seemed happy to be with each other, like very cuddly and very much a couple.
Was he affectionate with her?
Yes.
And was she affectionate with him?
Yes.
Did Travis ever seem to be clingy to Jodi?
Yeah, he was always seemingly very, very happy to be with her whenever they were together.
Okay. And did you ever have a chance to see them? Well, you talked about when you would all hang out, but they would be in a larger group setting.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yes.
When they were in a larger group setting, how did Travis treat Jodi?
When they were dating, it was about the same, like, spent a lot of time together, but he would also talk to a lot of other people. And then after they weren't dating anymore, they didn't spend that much time together, and he talked to a lot of other people.
Okay, and after they weren't dating anymore, was that, to put a time frame in your mind, was that after the trip to the Grand Canyon and Sedona?
Yes.
Okay, so before the trip to Grand Canyon and Sedona, is that when they were dating?
Yes.
All right. And so when they were dating, you said that he would talk to her and hang out with her in larger group settings?
Yes.
And then after this trip, after they broke up, which is sometime after Grand Canyon, Sedona, did he ignore her?
Not that I saw.
Okay. But were they together in these larger group settings? Did they talk very often to each other then?
No, it was more that she was just someone in the background.
That what?
It was more that, like, if Travis was talking to someone, Jodi was just someone in the background, not necessarily.
Like he wasn't really paying attention to
Yeah.
her? Okay. So did you have a chance to see Travis interact then with other people also?
Yes.
Would you characterize him as flirtatious with other girls?
Yeah, I would.
I want to talk to you about a little bit more about the trips.
Okay.
Do you remember when Grand Canyon and Sedona, when that trip was?
I think it was in the summertime, around June or so,
Okay,
after
June.
I graduated.
After you graduated? June of 2007, is that the year?
Yes.
Okay. And who went on that trip?
Jodi, Travis, my brother, and I.
So just the four of you?
Mm-hmm.
Is that a yes?
Yes, sorry.
And how did Travis and Jodi get along during that trip?
Very, very well.
Was Travis affectionate with Jodi?
Yes.
And vice versa?
Mm-hmm.
Is that a yes?
Yes.
And the other trip was to where?
Havasupai.
All right, and when was that?
That was 13th of September to the 15th of September of 2007.
And why do you remember those dates?
Because the 14th was my birthday.
Okay, so is that how the dates stick out in your memory?
Yes.
All right, and who went to Havasupai?
Just the four of us again. Just Travis, Jodi, my brother, and I.
All right, and was this, so this was this trip after the trip to the Grand Canyon?
Yes.
So would this have been after they broke up?
Yes.
And anybody else go, or just the four of you?
Just the four of us.
And during that time when it was just the four of you, how did Travis treat Jodi?
Just like they were when they previously were dating.
Did
There was no change.
So did they act like they were dating?
Yes.
Did they act to you? Did it seem like they were together?
Yes.
In September of 2007, did you know whether or not Travis was dating somebody else?
Yeah, I thought he was. I thought he was dating Lisa.
Lisa? Do you know Lisa's last name?
No.
Okay. So, did you find that odd that Travis brought Jodi?
Objection relevance.
Sustained.
In your religion, is premarital sex allowed?
No.
Okay. And what's that called?
It's called the Law of Chastity.
Okay. And what about if two single people were to be traveling together? How does that appear?
Not good.
Not good. Okay. Is that normal at all?
No, not really.
And I should preface this by saying I'm speaking specifically in the Mormon faith.
Yes.
Okay. So in the Mormon faith, if there's two single people traveling together, what do other people, how is that looked upon?
Normally people just see it as kind of odd because we try very hard not to put ourselves in situations where we might be tempted to have premarital sex and things like that. So you would normally not go on that, especially if you're dating. It wouldn't be something that would be viewed well, I suppose.
I'm sorry, did you say viewed well?
Yes.
Okay. And you said especially if you're dating?
Yeah.
Why is that?
Just because the temptation's higher.
Okay. And the thought is to keep away from the temptation?
Yes.
Did Travis claim to be a virgin?
Yes, he did.
Is that something he talked about?
He made jokes about it.
Jokes in what way?
Like,
Objection, hearsay.
Did he seem happy to be a virgin?
yes,
And did he seem proud?
yes.
Going back a little bit to Havasupai, to the trip to Havasupai, was this an overnight trip?
Yes.
Do you remember? Oh, well, you said from the 13th to the 15th, right?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. So that would be 2 nights?
Yes.
And during this trip, did you ever see an argument between Travis and Jodi?
Yes.
Can you tell us what happened?
We were in the car, and we were driving to Havasupai, and somewhere along the way, Jodi wanted to stop and take some pictures, so she got out and took some pictures, and when she came to get back in the car, Travis drove off a little bit and made it so she couldn't get in the car.
Travis was driving a little, as a joke, you mean?
Yeah, as a joke. And then he stopped and she got in. And
When Jodi got in, when Jodi got in the car, did she say something like that wasn't funny?
yes,
Overruled.
I'm sorry, you said what?
yes,
She did say that?
yes.
Okay. And how did Travis respond to that?
His response was very,
Without telling me what Travis said, how did he respond?
his response was just very stark, I would say. It seemed,
Wait, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear what you said. It was very what?
I can't really find the best word, stark, but
Stark,
it just,
okay.
it seemed a little over the top for the encounter.
Okay. Did he raise his voice?
Yeah,
Yes, he did.
yes, he did.
All right. And he had just been joking with her a few minutes before, or a few seconds before.
Yes.
How did you feel about his response?
Objection, relevance.
Sustained.
Were you shocked?
I was.
And after his over-the-top reaction, did Jodi respond at all to him?
No.
Objection is characterizing the response. Listen to it.
Rephrase.
After the response that shocked you, did Jodi respond in any way?
No, she just stared out the window.
She just stayed. Did she stay quiet?
Yes,
And she stared out the window?
yes.
All right. Thank you. That's all, now, Judge.
Cross-examination.
With regard to this issue of premarital sex, you indicated it was not allowed by the Mormon Church, right?
Yes,
And premarital sex involves participating in passionate kissing, right?
yes,
And it also involves lying on top of another person, right?
yes,
It also involves touching the private parts of another person's body, right?
yes,
It also involves touching the sacred parts of another person's body, right?
yes,
And this issue about touching is prohibited with or without clothing, correct?
yes,
And this sexual issue, in the Mormon Church teaches that the parties, or the two people, are not to do anything that arouses sexual feelings, right?
yes,
And they are not to arouse the emotions of your own body, right?
yes,
And other things that are prohibited are things such as participating in discussions or any media that arouse sexual feelings, correct?
yes,
Now, one of the things that you were telling us was that there were 2 trips that were involved with the defendant, you, your brother, and Mr. Alexander, correct?
yes,
And one of the trips was the one that was at the Havasupai Falls, right?
yeah,
And that was in September, during your birthday, right?
yes,
The other trip involved a trip to the Grand Canyon and Sedona, right?
yes,
And during that trip, during those 2 trips, you said that they got along very, very, very well. That's what you said, right?
yeah, they got on very well.
Right? And according to you, there was no conflict between the 2 of them, right?
Aside from the one instance, yes.
Sure, aside from the one that you mentioned, where he jokingly wouldn't allow her to get in the car, something like that, right?
Yes,
That was the only incident that you can remember, right?
yes.
Do you remember what happened before they went to on that Havasupai trip? Do you remember that?
No.
Do you know that during that time there was an issue?
Objection, Your Honor. She just said she doesn't remember what happened.
Refresh your recollection.
All right, overruled.
Isn't it true, ma'am, that before they went on this trip, there was an issue involving the defendant's backpack, right?
I don't recall it.
Do you remember that first? You were in the car, correct? Driving up to have a soup pie, weren't you?
Yes, I was.
Mr. Alexander was driving, right?
Yes, he was.
The defendant was in the passenger seat, right?
Yes.
And you were in the back with your brother, right?
Yes.
And do you remember that for the first approximately 30 minutes of that trip, there was no talking between Mr. Alexander and the defendant? Do you remember that?
No.
Do you think that they were talking all along in the beginning of that trip?
I just don't remember.
It could be you just don't remember, right?
Yes.
It could be they were in a fight, you just don't remember.
I just don't recall.
And do you remember that when you went down to have a soup pie, all of you stayed in hammocks, right?
Yes, we did.
And when you stayed in these hammocks, the defendant stayed in her hammock, you stayed in your hammock, Mr. Alexander stayed in his hammock, and your brother was in his hammock, right?
Yes.
And there was a time where, getting up in the morning, there was a time that there was a trek or a hike that the four of you took, right?
Yes.
Isn't it true that you and your brother went ahead of the defendant and Mr. Alexander because they were arguing over the defendant being too clingy with him?
I do not remember.
You don't remember that you guys took off and they didn't join you for about an hour and a half. Do you remember that?
No.
And that when they joined you, they were upset at each other. You don't remember that?
No.
How about when they went on the trip? You said that, well, the trip to Sedona. Do you remember that? You told us, well, there was this issue involving the taking of photographs, right? Well, the defendant wanted Sedona Grand Canyon. It was the same trip, right?
Sedona Grand Canyon trip, yes.
Right. Same trip, right?
Yes.
And the defendant wanted to take some photographs, right?
Yes.
Mr. Alexander stopped the car, right?
Yes.
And actually what happened is that the defendant was upset because he got too close to the edge of the road. Isn't that what was the problem?
I don't remember.
And isn't it true that he did this, got too close to the edge, so that she could get out and take a better picture? Do you remember that?
No.
And when she got out, you do remember, though, that she went out and got out to take pictures, right?
Yes.
And when she went out to get pictures, she went to get back in, and he kind of sort of took off, right?
Yes.
And that created a problem, right?
Yes.
And then according to you, when she got in, he made a remark, right?
They both did.
Wow. According to you, he made a remark that shocked you, right?
It was over the top.
Pardon?
It was over the top.
It was over the top. And do you even remember the remark today?
No, I don't.
It was so shocking you can't remember what the remark was, can you?
It's just been a very long time.
The answer is you can't remember even though you were so shocked and over the top, right?
Yes, I can't
I don't have
remember.
anything else.
Redirect.
Ms. Freeman, you were just asked questions about the Grand Canyon Sedona trip, right?
Yes.
Okay, I think there might be some confusion. So it was the Have a Soup I trip, wasn't it, where this over-the-top shocking comment was made to Jodi?
Objection leading.
Rephrase.
When we discussed on direct, when I just was up here a few minutes ago and we talked about the different trips, was it in Have a Soup I where the argument occurs about him going forward and then making a bad comment to Miss Arias?
It was a Have a Soup I trip.
Okay, so and what was the comment itself? Was it how the comment was made that was shocking, or was it the comment itself?
It was how it was made.
And is that why you remember it, how it was made?
Yeah.
Objection leading.
Overruled.
Yes, that's why I remember it.
And during that Have a Soup I trip, before going, was it Travis who wanted to bring Jodi?
Objection speculation.
I can ask, did you know? Did you know that Travis wanted to bring Jodi?
Objection leading.
Overruled. Do you answer yes or no?
As far as I remember, yes.
All right, thank you. Nothing further.
Any questions from the jury for this witness? You may step down. The defense may call its next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. The defense calls Daniel Freeman.
Raise your right hand. You do solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Please walk around and have a seat right over here.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Could you introduce yourself to the jury, please?
My name is Daniel Freeman.
And Mr. Freeman, where do you live?
I live here in Gilbert.
Okay. And how old are you, sir?
29.
Okay. Have you lived in Gilbert all your life?
No, I've moved many, many times.
Okay.
So,
How long have you lived in Gilbert this latest
initially I moved here in 2001 and moved back in just this last November to help work with a friend here.
Okay. So you lived here from 2001 till when?
Here from 2001 to 2006, and then from 2006 to 2008, I was in Canada for 2 years. And
A what?
I was in Canada for 2
Okay.
years as a missionary, and then here again from 2008 until I guess a year and 3 months ago. And then I went to
Okay.
Colorado.
All right. You mentioned you were a missionary in Canada, which brings to my next question. Are you a member of the Mormon Church?
Yes, I am.
Okay. And this missionary you served, this was what year?
October of 06 to October, November of 08.
Okay. And is that the only mission you've been on?
Mhm.
Okay. And could I get you to answer yes or no
Oh, yes,
instead of
yes.
for the court reporter? Thank you, sir. Now, you mentioned your mission work. What, was there a particular duty or role you had in that work?
As a missionary, we did a lot of proselyting and sharing our beliefs with people, inviting them if they wish to learn more. I particularly did a lot of work with either less active members or friends of members for the most part.
So describe for us then what you would do when you're speaking to informing people of the church. Proselytizing, is that the word you used? Describe what that meant.
We would, whether it was contacting or friends who were interested to learn what our beliefs were, we would meet with them and share our beliefs and our history and where they came from. And as we shared them, invite them to learn for themselves, to pray, to kneel down on their knees and get their own answers spiritually. And mostly it was educational, and we would teach people how to connect with their higher power if they wished, and help them define what they were looking for, and really just to, for me, being a missionary was all about encouraging people to live the things they knew to be true, even if it didn't connect them to our faith in the end, and they became a member of our church. For me, it was important that they just live what they knew to be true. And if they found ours to be true, to conform to that.
Okay. And I imagine this isn't something you can broach in first time you meet someone or in 10 minutes. I imagine it's a process, right?
Yes, it's a process. But as a missionary, we broached the topic fairly quickly that that's what we were there for, because that was our purpose.
Okay. But tell me about the process, if you will. Like I say, you're not going to someone and say, come to our church and baptizing them and, get them back home that afternoon, right? I mean, tell us about that.
Usually there would be a process of events that they would have gone through before we'd even met them that had made them open or interested or willing to learn or wanting to learn. And in my case, a lot of times it was members who would bring their friends to activities that we had and would introduce us, and we'd talk to them and get to know them. And in that conversation, they said that they would like to know more about our beliefs, and we'd set up an appointment to go by and discuss with them and talk with them. And so initially we'd talk about the Book of Mormon, for which we're also called Mormons, and we talk about Joseph Smith and the history of revelation and scripture throughout the world. And then we would invite them to read some of the Book of Mormon, and we'd set up a time to come back, and then we'd talk to them about the three big questions kind of in life that everyone has is, who are we, where did we come from, why are we here, and where are we going? And so we'd answer those questions with them and invite them again to read more and to pray. And then we would talk to them specifically about the church itself and how it was organized and founded and what its purpose is and why it was here on the earth. And we would invite them again to pray and to start to come to church. And as people showed through willingness in their actions that they were willing to progress or willing to learn more through actions of what they did, we would just continue to invite them to pray and ask them if they'd received an answer or spiritual promptings that they felt. And as they had, we would continue to invite them more further, ultimately ending in baptism and becoming a member of the church.
Okay. So it sounds like it's some time. It takes some time. There's a lot of visits. There's a lot of, I don't know if I'm using the right word, but there's a lot of spiritual investment or introspection involved in that, right?
Yes, there is. You become very good friends with the people that you work with and teach.
Okay. And it's not necessarily a process, even for you as a missionary, to just put someone on get them into church and baptize them without them reaching that point, right? That's not your goal.
No, the goal is not to bring people into the church so that they disappear or fall away. It's to help people find within themselves the desire and the drive, if that's what they feel that they should do, and to do it.
Okay. So as a missionary, you're not seeking to baptize someone or seeking to have them baptized until you're satisfied, if you will, that they've put in the effort, they put in the introspection, they put in the work, right?
No, we're seeking to baptize people who want to be a part of the church and serve within the community.
Okay. Now, sir, did you know a man by the name of Travis Alexander?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And how did you come to know Travis Alexander?
I came to know Travis through prepaid legal. I started working with prepaid legal here with some of my friends and Danny Jones and a number of others. And after we'd been working for probably several months, I don't remember, but it was the first big event that we'd gone to that was regional in nature. And at the regional event, I met Travis Alexander, Chris Hughes, and a number of other of the leaders in prepaid legal.
Okay. You say leaders, was he directly connected to you in terms of the hierarchy or the teams, Mr. Alexander?
He was connected to me, there was no compensation connecting us at all, no compensation benefit connecting us, but he was in the Hughes brothers had several teams, and together they all kind of branched out. He was in, I believe, one of the other Hughes brothers teams.
Okay. And so you weren't directly underneath him, so to speak?
No.
Okay. And do you remember when, month or year, this meeting took place with Mr. Alexander?
And I don't remember the exact date, because I don't remember exactly when I started prepaid legal.
Okay.
but I know I knew him well before I left on my mission in 2006. And so I want to say it was in 2003 or 2004. Because at the time I was working at an auto dealership there.
Okay. So he wasn't, just to clarify, he wasn't just a business associate of yours?
No.
He was a friend?
Yeah. Initially, we met at the business events, and initially, him and I we didn't get along very well initially, honestly.
Okay.
Because at first I found him kind of cocky, honestly.
Okay.
But with time, as I came to know him, him and I came to be very good friends.
Okay. And that friendship was at least 2 years in duration, based on what you've told us, right? 2 or 3 years, perhaps?
Up to 2006, and then after coming back in 2008, we were friends again.
Okay. During your relationship with Mr. Alexander, did he ever introduce you to Jodi Arias?
Yes, he did.
Tell us how that occurred.
Travis and he was going to, and I believe at this time I was roommates with him, but so we were, Travis was going to a Super Saturday, an event that was going on in California with Chris Hughes, and he was driving out to that, and I didn't have anything going on that weekend. He asked if I wanted to go, and so I believe it was Friday night, fairly late, we started driving over, and I met Jodi over there that night, late that evening on the way there. He said, "Hey, I want to stop by and introduce you to somebody. We're just going to stop by and say hi on our way to town."
Okay. And you say, do you think it was, you said late in the evening, are we talking early morning or are we talking late in the evening?
Early morning. It was after midnight when we arrived there.
Okay. Do you have any knowledge whether Jodi Arias was expecting your arrival?
I don't think so.
Okay. And what do you base that on?
I remember Travis on the way over, just what he said was he was going.
Let me ask you this. Based on your travels with Travis to Miss Arias' home, you didn't get the indication that she was expecting him, or you?
When she opened the door, she was quite surprised.
Okay. When she opened the door, were both you and Travis standing there, or how did that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tell us what happened just once she opened the door.
Once she opened the door, she was surprised and came out and gave Travis a hug. Travis introduced me. We went inside. She had been watching the movie The Secret. It was on the TV.
Okay.
And they were joking around, and I think I'd been sleeping in the car before we got there. I sat down on the couch, and they continued to talk, and I talked a little bit. And then they went off into the back and were still talking and laughing. And I watched The Secret for a while, fell asleep watching that, and when they came back in, I was waking up and chatted with them more.
Okay. So would that be, sounds to me like you were at the home several hours, Miss Arias' home?
I don't remember the exact duration, but I'd say maybe an hour, because
Okay.
the movie was finishing when I woke up.
All right. After you met Jodi, did you strike up a friendship with her as well?
Initially, we were on friendly terms at the events that we would go to, whether it was prepaid legal events, but the only time I would see her was when I was hanging out with Travis and she was there. But we became good friends in that regard.
Okay. Did you also become good friends with Miss Arias independent of Mr. Alexander? Did you spend time with her on your own as well?
The only time that I believe we spent not with Travis was the times when we were all at events together, and Travis would be doing things with the leadership. And then Jodi and I and others, my sister included, would hang out and do things at the events and spend time together. But I don't remember specifically being alone, just the two of us, during that time.
I want to clarify something. You brought up something. How long were you Travis's roommate?
3 or 4 months.
Okay. And that was, you were a roommate at the period of time when Mr. Alexander introduced you to Ms. Arias, right?
I believe so.
Okay. And you were a member of prepaid legal at the time of this meeting as well, right?
Yes.
Okay. Are you still involved in prepaid legal?
No, I have an active membership, but I'm not actively involved.
Okay. And actively involved, I take it by that you mean, going to meetings, that sort of thing, selling the product, right?
Yes, no, I have
Okay.
not.
And when did that venture cease for you?
When I went on my mission in 2006, it was put on pause for 2 years. I came back, and from 2008 until 2009, I believe it was in 2009 that I ceased that venture in January, I believe.
Okay. Did you ever have the occasion to travel with Jodi and Travis?
Yes, I did.
Do you recall how many trips you took with them?
The trips I can specifically think of with just the two of them that weren't prepaid legal were when we went to Havasupai and we went to Sedona and the Grand Canyon.
Okay. As it relates, let me just first of all focus our questioning on the Havasupai trip, okay? Is that a yes? Can we
Yes,
ask
yeah,
you
we can
quick?
focus
Okay.
on that.
I saw you nod, so. Do you recall when that trip took place?
Forgive me, I'm trying to think of timeline. I've moved close to 50 times now, so I have to sort through.
Fair enough. Take your time, and I'm not asking for an exact date. Maybe if you could give us a month and year.
It was towards the end of a summer, and I believe it was 2007.
Okay. The end of summer 2007, and this trip to Havasupai, we mentioned Jodi and Travis going on this trip with you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that a yes?
Yes, that is.
And was anyone else on that trip?
And my sister Desiree as well.
Okay. Was it your impression that Jodi and Travis were together as a couple during that trip?
Yes, it was.
And on what do you base that impression?
How they interacted together. My impression, I would say, is that they were to everyone else it seemed like they were together and yet not together, and to me when I was around them with just the two of them they were fairly comfortable together and acted more like a couple. And I know with Travis, around others, he didn't know, he was still figuring out, I guess, where he was. And so around others, when Jodi wasn't there, even when I was there, he was different in his demeanor. He didn't mention Jodi, but when they were together, to me they were dating, but there were some issues that they were still working out, and so I didn't ask a lot of questions about it.
Okay. You said a lot there. Are you telling us that he acted differently privately with Jodi than he did, shall we say, publicly with Jodi?
Yes.
Okay. And could you really kind of just describe for us what you mean by that?
At that time, at least when we were going on the trip, throughout the week and hanging out with different groups of friends that Travis had who would come over,
Okay.
oftentimes Jodi would not come to those events, but then they would hang out later on in the week.
Okay.
And so there were different groups of friends that would hang out and kind of exclusive of one another.
Okay. So your impression was he kept Jodi into a different compartment. Is that right?
Yeah, yes, I guess you could say that.
Different peer group.
Yes.
That'd be a better word. Okay. Now you said in this late summer of 2007 when you went to Havasupai, your impression was that they were a couple. They were acting like a couple, right?
Yes, they were acting like a couple. There were definitely some undercurrents there between them, but they were acting like a couple.
Okay. Well, let's break that down a bit. What do you mean by, what makes you say they were definitely acting like a couple?
They would flirt and tease and hold hands and the little touches as they talked and things like that. They were just very intimate in the way they conversed with each other. They knew each other very well and were obviously comfortable and friendly in one another's company.
Do you mean that physically?
They were comfortable but not overly expressive.
Okay.
As in touching, kissing, things like that in public, in front of other people.
And you said in public in front of other people, but when you were on this trip, when it was just the four of you, were they physically expressive?
Yes. They would hold hands and touch, and in the waterfalls and things when we would swim, they were in some of the pools where we would sit. Jodi would sit on Travis's lap, or they'd have their arms around each other for a photo, for a shot, things like that.
Okay. And that was different than the way they acted in public?
If they were at an event for the most part, or at a friend's gathering, they weren't as... They were friends, it looked like more to me.
Okay. You also mentioned there were some undercurrents going on during this trip. What do you mean by that?
When we started the trip, I think of two things. I'll back up first. One is in conversations that I had with Travis, what he had said was that while he loved Jodi, he didn't know if he wanted to marry her. And so as far as dating, he said he wanted to date other people, and yet every time they hung out, he said that they would continue to hang out and would continue to fall back into dating again.
Okay.
And so I knew that was in Travis's mind. And then as we get ready to go on the trip, we had packed backpacks in everybody's bags. And Jodi had brought hers downstairs and set it on the table, and then had gone back up to finish getting ready. And I was just picking it up to move it off the table. And it was quite heavy. And with the hike in being long, I didn't know if she would survive that hike with that pack. So I opened it up to see what was in there and found, things girls take with them, lotions, pills, or lotions, makeup, things of that nature. So I proceeded, as I usually do for hiking, I helped to lighten her pack.
Okay.
And then she came down and saw what we had taken out, or what I had taken out in particular, and had made a comment about it. She was not happy with it, and had expressed her concern that those things were no longer in her pack. And I don't remember what Travis said, but he made a comment back, and that...
Well, let me ask you this. Based on your assessment of Mr. Alexander's demeanor, was he upset with Ms. Arias over this backpack? Without telling me anything he said, was he angry? Was he talking loud?
He did start to talk loud. It wasn't about the backpack, though. It was about the exchange between them that went on. And then she went upstairs and had started crying, and he had started raising his voice and yelling a little bit. So they were arguing back and forth upstairs. And my sister and I sat downstairs on the couch for a while, looking at each other, and I was wondering, what did I do? And after 3, 4, 5 minutes, I went upstairs and started to talk with them and say, hey, let's calm down and de-escalate the argument. Okay.
And based on the fact that you made it there, I'm guessing eventually you got in the car and began to drive up there, right?
We got in the car, and Travis and Jodi still weren't talking to each other.
Okay.
And we had suggested, well, everybody's a little tense, let's get in the car and start to drive, and everyone will calm down as we go. And within half an hour, everyone was happy and joking and talking again.
Okay. Before we move on to the Sedona trip, I want to ask you, at this time period, this late summer 2007, were you under the impression that Travis was dating someone else, not Jodi?
I do not recall at the time of those trips if he was actively dating anyone else or if he was just hanging out with groups of friends at the house.
Okay. Do you remember him having a relationship with a young lady named, at that time, Lisa Andrews?
I do remember Lisa and her, as well as an entourage of many of her friends were over there. Although I do remember we went out to eat dinner, Travis and I and Lisa and another one of her friends. We went out to eat, and I believe that was before we went on the trip.
Okay. And was that sort of a double date?
It was kind of a spontaneous occurrence that
Okay.
happened, and while there, it wasn't official. But so while there, that was my impression was, wow, we ended up on a double date, basically.
Okay. And while on this double date with Lisa Andrews and this, you yourself and this other young lady, was this at a restaurant, this public place?
I believe we were at a Denny's.
Okay. And you mentioned that you kind of got the impression that Travis was or you were on a double date. Was Travis acting as if he was, or were he and Lisa acting as if they were a couple?
Not as a couple, but they were flirting and talking, and Travis was making jokes, and he was making jokes and being who he was, usually around women that he was interested in. Just
Okay, so
talking.
based on his behavior, you got the impression that he was interested in, at the very least, interested in Lisa Andrews at that point in time, right?
Yes, or that he enjoyed hanging out with her and spending time with her. I can't say that anything he did was specifically expressed to me that he clearly that he was clearly saying it, but to me it was present there in the background.
Okay. Your Honor, may we approach?
Recess at this time. However, before we adjourn, there are two matters I would like to discuss with you. The first matter is that some of the evidence in this matter may elicit emotional responses from witnesses and from those seated in the gallery. At the end of the trial, I will give you final instructions. You will also see something of this nature in your preliminary instructions. But I want to emphasize to you at this point that in evaluating the evidence, you should not be influenced by sympathy or prejudice. Now, in response to the incident that occurred yesterday during the noon hour involving the one juror, the court has arranged to have an escort for all jurors downstairs each day at the noon hour and after court. So there will be someone here from court security to take all of you downstairs at lunch, and they will also take you downstairs to the bus at the end of the court day. I'm going to suggest that if any of you have concerns about being approached, that you remove your juror badge when you're coming into the court building. Put it on as soon as you get inside the court building. The media has been, they have been approached, and they are aware that they should not be trying to contact any jurors. All right, are there any questions? Please remember the admonition. Have a nice evening. We will see you tomorrow at 10:30. You can step down, sir. Thank you. We'll see you tomorrow at 10:30. Please be seated. Council, is there anything else we need to address? No. All right, we're adjourned.